Hey guys, I'm Trinity.
And I'm Mac.
And this is the first ever SIP podcast.
You guys may be wondering what SIP is because it's the first episode. Basically, SIP is here to connect the community by bringing together the voices that call Westfield home. And we're going to do that by focusing on the hearts and minds of students and the current events affecting their lives. We're going to touch on many different topics, but we're really going to focus on faith, community, and students. So we're really excited, and we're going to have a little bit of an intermission here.
Because of the exciting news, I don't know if you guys noticed, you might. We have some new and first ever seen Student Impact merch. I got some on. Someone's on the wall.
Do you have a shirt somewhere?
I got this new shirt. The front is plain, but then the back we got a cool smiley face with our Student Impact logo on it.
Also got cool pants.
We got some sweatpants, rock those around. So those should be launching soon, and they'll be able to be purchased.
So we're going to start this Student Impact podcast off strong with the one and only Danyele Easterhaus here. And Danielle, you're lucky enough to be the first guest. So
I can't wait.
You get to do the first question of the day, which these are all questions from Student Impact students themselves. They just did them one day after school. So you kind of get to hear from the kids. They shouldn't be too intense. Oh, this one is. Would you rather be a dinosaur or a chicken, and why?
That's a really good question because I'm a chicken farmer.
Oh.
And I have baby T-Rex arms. Like there's both of those things. I don't know. This is hard. You know, I have to admit that chickens are still alive today. So I'm going to go with chickens because I don't want to be extinct.
Solid.
See, I would kind of want to be a dinosaur. Because, like, you're that thing that everybody, like, doesn't know about. And it's just, like, a cool imaginary topic.
And people always talk about you.
Exactly.
And don't
Kids seems legit.
Kids
really
love
easily?
dinosaurs.
Chickens do die easily. Yeah.
Ooh.
And they're kind of gross.
I feel like a chicken would fit my personality.
You do lay an egg. I mean, you can... You make breakfast for people.
Yeah, I'm sticking with a dinosaur.
Yeah, I think that's a
I'm
good
sticking
call.
with the dinosaur.
That's a good call.
So go ahead and introduce yourself to the podcast. Tell us who you are, why we have you here, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm Danyele Easterhaus. I've been the executive director here at Student Impact since 2008-ish. And I am overwhelmed with all this amazing stuff that's been happening at Student Impact in just even the last few years. So I'm here to show the excitement, for one thing, for everything that's been happening to, like, I don't know, let's celebrate. Let's show everyone what's going on. But the other thing is like, you guys are doing such cool and amazing things as students, and that's always been the goal. So it's really cool to see things that we've dreamed of, like that we visioned years and years and years ago, and you guys are like making it happen. So that's the little bit about me. I've let's see, I have a husband, right, Ryan, almost 25 years.
We love Ryan.
Ryan's
He's an
awesome.
icon.
Ryan's amazing. He puts up with me every single day. With a smile. I have 4 daughters that are, and one son-in-law, Paige and Aaron, are married. And then I have Brooke, and then I have Jada, and then I have Sophia. So, yeah, we've had 11 different foster kids over the years, and heaven knows how many kids we've had through Student Impact, but it's been a joy. So,
Do you feel like the Student Impact kids become like your kids?
yeah, I always say that once you're a Student Impact kid, you're just always a Student Impact kid. I had breakfast the other day with a former Student Impact kid who's 34.
Oh, wow.
And it seems very odd. You know, I mean, I
Nice.
talk to her several times a month and we visit, we call each other, but there's a point where a Student Impact kid is no longer just a Student Impact kid, they're your friend. Like, and so for sure, some kids you see later, like when you're out, this happens to me a lot. I'll be like,
I remember them.
yeah,
from
and they'll be
somewhere.
like, wait, do you remember me? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, I was in 9th grade, and it's a man who's like 28. And then you're like, you didn't look like that when you were in 9th grade.
I know when I was here in like middle school and you'd see the older kids come here and like they're all adults, I'd be like, whoa, that's so weird that like they used to come here and now they're adults and they can talk to Danielle like a friend. And I'd always be like, I hope I'm the adult that gets to come and be Danielle's friend.
Yeah, it's always been a fun thing to be
Yeah.
able to see people grow. I love that we have a couple police department guys that are former Student Impact kids. We have had a number of Student Impact kids that are teachers at the high school, at the middle school, at some of the elementary schools. It's just a fun. It's fun. It's fun to see how generationally it just keeps going. You know, it's not just a few people.
Yeah.
It's a long stretch of people for sure.
You said you started in 2008. Tell us, like, where you were in 2008. What made you get here?
Because I heard that you were an engineer, and so
Yeah.
engineering and student impact's
Very
different.
Yeah, it's student impact was never on my radar as an actual job. I graduated with a mechanical engineering technology degree from Ball State. Tidbit of information for all of you that are not great at the SAT. I did really poor at it, so I ended up going to like any school that would let me in. So I went to Ball State for my degree, had a great degree, and graduated and started working in the automotive industry. So I would do automotive designs, all kinds of things, anything from steering wheel controls to radio heads to OnStar, Communiport, all of those. When Paige was little, she used to tell people in kindergarten that her mom worked on talking cars. So the cars that would talk to you, we designed some of those things.
It's a little.
It was a very strange, like kind of
I bet that teacher was really
Very
interested.
confused.
She also told her that Ryan watched TV for a living because he was a TV engineer. And
That teacher was definitely like,
yeah, you're like, how much do you get paid for that? Yeah. So, I was working. I've always had a passion and a love for student ministry in some capacity. In college, I kind of walked a little bit away from my faith a little. And I knew as I got out of college that I wanted to not have that happen for other kids. And I wished at some point I would have had an adult that looked at me and said, listen, you made some really stupid mistakes, but that doesn't make you a bad kid. And I kind of always had that in my heart, that was something that I really wanted kids to know. And so I started by volunteering in youth ministries, and Ryan and I were always just number one volunteers, basically, in whatever church that we happened to be in. And so that's how I ended up getting involved at Student Impact. Super strange, but Dan Ventling, he actually lived in the same neighborhood that I did.
Really?
He lived like 6 houses down from us.
that's crazy how that works.
Yeah,
Just like,
and his kids who started Student Impact. Student Impact started with 6 people, 6 kids. His
Wow.
3 were part of those 3, and the other 3 were all kids of the youth ministry that we were all involved in. So I knew the girls really well because I was doing youth ministry with the girls at that time, and so we just became prayer partners with the Ventlings and some other people, just saying, what can we do as fellow Christians to help you out? Because, like, I'm engineering. I don't have time to do anything else. And I really never saw a vision outside of that, frankly. But ultimately, God just brought it together. And I did a lot of back end stuff here at Student Impact. Like back in the day, we used to take attendance with paper. And somebody had to enter all that stuff and you do all that.
I'm so glad I don't have to do that.
I know, right? Yeah.
That sounds awful.
Well, imagine with the amount of kids we have now.
Right. It would be insane. And I remember Joey Christensen used to come over and he'd drop all these pieces of paper off, and I'd try to, and all the kids wrote their own names. So like reading it was always like,
You're
who
like,
is that? But what a great way on the flip side to know who's involved and who's not, and learn kids' names.
Yeah.
So I really learned all of the kids' names like that. So I was involved in the girls' Bible studies. I would lead those, and I would come and just hang out on the pancake breakfast days, things like that.
Those
Back
were
when-
happening all the way back then?
we would have, so Student Impact was known for donuts and Mountain Dew. So we would do
healthy.
donuts and dew.
Yeah,
that's
It was
nutritious.
much worse nutrition-wise. Yeah.
Oh my. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So ultimately, I got on the board of directors because I wanted to be more involved. And we had a transition time, and people were leaving, and we needed an interim executive director. And they were like, well, you're the one that works here with all the kids. How about you just like pitch in until we can find somebody? And I was like, all right, that seems fine. And so I started here in 2023.
So you just stayed, and you got like more and more of like.
Yeah, I just became the
responsibilities?
interim executive director, and then at some point I was like, It's kind of like when you're dating, you're like, are we dating yet? This was what happened.
were in
Like,
the talking
am
stage.
I like, yeah, we were in the talking stage for a long time. And so then I was like, I'm just going to ask, I mean, am I like an executive director or are
You're
we
like,
still
did
interim?
I ever? Are you still look? Did you ever start looking?
I know. And there was never a search committee.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, that happened.
So you kind of just got thrown into it.
So kind of, I mean, it was exciting. We were in kind of some financial, like, we were really trying to make it work and we had to raise a lot of money. And so it was very much a crazy time of raising money, getting the word out of who we were. We'd already gotten the house donated. So there were a lot of excitement around it, but we were still just trying to have people understand who student impact is, what student impact does, why student impact is important to the city, to your neighbors, to churches, to people.
And I feel like we're still trying to prove that today. Because
Every day.
It's not like people don't know who we are, but I feel like they just don't know the insides.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, this podcast, I think is going to do so many good things for this, is because I feel like it's just going to get that word out there.
I couldn't agree more. I say if I can get somebody through the doors at Student Impact, they'll get the vision.
Yeah.
And the mission.
I know as a high school student at Westfield, all people know Student Impact as is basketball. So
Right.
I think just getting people to see like the inside of it, hearing from the actual students that are here and what's actually happening will be really cool. You said that obviously you started in 2008 and everyone was really struggling financially in 2008 because, you know,
Everyone.
all the things. So what were like some of the most challenging things as the executive director at Student Impact to make happen? Because you're feeding all these kids, you're going all these different places. What were like your biggest challenges with no money?
We were thankful that I grew up in a family that would ask for anything and not be upset if we didn't get it. So humility was the key. There was a long period of time where I would, on the weekends, go around to food trucks, go around to a number of like festivals and would ask at the end of the day, hey, do you have any food left over? I'm trying to feed these kids. I worked with a lot of restaurants. I collected a lot of leftover food before we had food rescue, which is a whole other thing that we did here. But I would collect food from the schools that were left over. That's where we got all of our fruits and vegetables, things that literally were being thrown away. We would just bring them here, and that's how we fed everyone. The struggles were real. I mean, back then we just didn't have enough money. We had literally nothing to be able to like really buy anything. So it all became an attempt to reach out to people and share the vision. Like, why do we do what we do here? And if you shared the vision and they got a hold of it, they were like, yes, I'll do that. And so, I would just literally go in anywhere, talk to anybody.
You probably sounded like a salesperson by the end of it. Like,
You're absolutely right. There's a certain part where I'd be like, hey, I have 75 kids that come to this house and I like to feed them. And right now we are feeding them frozen donuts.
oh, they were frozen.
They were frozen. We would thaw them out. You remember that, right?
As a young student impact kid, there were definitely some interesting food days. Like we would walk in, every single day, you were always like, so what's gonna be on that counter today? Because like now the kids always know it's gonna be a casserole that's bussin', or it's gonna be
It's
like
real food.
it's pasta.
It's like
all
a real
the
dinner.
things.
I just ate like an enchilada thing.
Yes.
For snack.
Yeah.
It was good.
There
It
were
was
days
really
where
good.
we would get like those big, huge cans of applesauce that people like this from like the school that they didn't know what to do with. And we'd be like, what could we do with this? And we would have like applesauce eating races. And like, I mean, what do you do with all that stuff? You just, I mean, we had to get super creative. I had these ladies that would come in and they were from this huge family as kids, and their mom could repurpose anything. So I'd be like, I have peas, I have carrots, and I've got chicken. Go. And they would go and with all the food that I had collected from different people, and they would make meals and bring it back. It was just a really cool community aspect. I mean, it's a lot like what we're doing now,
That's
but
like a
different.
That's like a hidden talent almost. Like
it's a gift.
to be like, oh, let me just turn this into something real quick.
Yeah.
Like that takes some talent.
Yes.
Wow.
And now, like, there's so, like, the kids have so many options here. Like, they have snack bags. They
Yes.
have the hot food. They have the vegetables. I remember, like, it would be a huge deal when we would walk in and mac and cheese was being cooked.
Oh, yes.
Best day ever. Like,
Best day ever.
Or, like, pudding.
Do you remember when I used to make
No.
homemade soup? I made soup all the time for you
Yes,
guys.
the soup was the best part.
I always made homemade soup because I could put that together very
Yeah.
cheap.
So now they have like all these options, and then there's always like that one kid that like comes up and gets like a whole plate of vegetables out of everything, and
Yes.
you're like, wow, you
Got self-control.
You are. I wouldn't be doing that, but
Part of youth ministry is gaining a lot of weight with the carbs.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's an untold thing that people don't mention to you when you go into youth ministry. It's very carb loaded. Yeah, take a look at what we
The
do.
Starbucks,
sometimes.
when we used to have
Oh,
Starbucks
my
out
gosh.
every day, I think we probably,
That's a good 15 pounds right there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
'cause
100%.
you could get as many as you wanted. We were all just like racking
Cake
them
pops.
up. Cake, man.
Every time you see a cake pop, everybody's reaching for them, and like I feel like if you ate a cake pop every single day, no, you would not be looking cute.
Nope.
So you went from being in engineering for you and your husband.
Yes.
Was it for your family? Was there like a struggle jumping from that into here, or like how did that impact you guys as a whole?
So when Ryan and I got married, Paige was 4.
Uh-huh.
And that would have been in 99.
Okay.
And we had Brooke in 03. Jada, we had Jada in 05, and then Sophia was born in 08, and I was really sick. So I, quote, retired from engineering because they had a buyout plan. And so I'm not sure at that point, other than just trusting that God was going to do the right thing and knowing that he had called me here, why we made that decision. Because it was a 6-figure income. It came with, 5 weeks of vacation. It was stable. They didn't want me to leave, but I just felt called here. I knew I was supposed to be here. So we had to back up on things, but the Lord has been very prevalent in our finances in terms of, I can see throughout all the years, like we've never struggled like I thought we would. When we cut the amount of income out, we just got other things. Other things would just, like the Lord would provide other things like a lesser vehicle that we could, go down and pay less for, or cheaper insurance. There was just always something that would happen. There's a lot of struggle. Sophia has really lived her entire life in this house.
Which is crazy.
She's literally
Yeah.
grown up in this house. And Paige, Paige was in high school.
So do you look back at some of those moments and you're like, how did I even like get through paying bills? Like,
There's a lot of those moments.
or like, how did this happen? Like, is that just like a mind blowing thing to like look back on and be like, wow, like he really provided for me.
I don't look back at all and think, wow, that was so easy. There were challenges along the way that made you reevaluate what you were doing in life. And I think like with Impact itself, not even on a personal level, but with Impact itself, there was such a passion to get this up and going. My vision from the very beginning was to, take this place and have people see the vision and mission of it. And then build this space out, get it there, and then get it financially stable. So I wanted, that was my goal all along. I didn't know how long I'd be here. I'd always said, well, when my time's up, I'll leave. And when that time comes, it'll happen. But man, to see the vision of where God put that in my mind. At one point, I thought that was a big red barn in the middle of the woods, like kind of thing where kids could just hang out and, fix cars. And I had all kinds of dreams. And then God would be like, that's not
You're
it.
like,
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we're going to do. So
When you say like you didn't know how long you were gonna be here, is it just crazy to think about how like you've been here through so many of the changes from Student Impact?
Yeah.
Like it went from here to like here with you being here. So like now when you think about all the different things that are happening, like the building expansion
Yes.
and this podcast and how huge basketball is, like what does that make you feel? Like, how do you think of that?
It's a very humbling.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know a better word to use, but like when I first came on, student impact basketball, we had about 75 kids probably that played, and we would play over at the high school MPIF, and every Saturday all day, me and all my girls would go over there and we'd sell pizza and hot dogs and soda, and we'd sit there with people and sell Gatorades. Like, that's what we did. That's how we made money to sustain this building, was through basketball.
So you go from 75 people to in basketball when you first started it.
Yeah.
And now you look on it and we have 7th through 12th grade.
Yes.
And we had 150 coaches that signed up, and we had to get rid of half of them.
Yes.
Because there was so many people that want to be a part of it.
And there was a day where we literally, if you go back and look at Facebook, we would beg people to be coaches.
That's crazy.
Beg people to be coaches.
Wow.
And now, we have a sign up list for next
We
year.
have a
waiting
It's
waiting
like a
list.
Nike shoe drop. Like, you
They're
want to be
like-
on the list, you better be on the list this year.
At the school, basketball is like, it's like, you have no idea how excited people get for that. Like, when they were putting out, I remember I was at school when they like posted that registration was open, and I'd be walking through the hallway and everyone was like, have you signed up for basketball yet? Are you coaching? Are you playing? And it's like, no.
It's a big deal.
It's huge. It's
a
like
big deal.
the biggest thing.
And so, like, I just want to, say that, when we have all these coaches, the coaches that are actually a part of it are so excited to be there. And their passion and drive is, unbelievable. Where, I see, the night of the draft, I was like, oh my goodness. These people came in and they were so ready. And they were so excited.
They're picking an NBA team.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's
When
legit.
you picked there was one point where someone picked the wrong kid, and everyone was like, "Yo, why'd you choose him?"
Yeah.
It was so funny. It was the end of the world.
It's really a super big deal. And I think it's important what we say to them, which is, you think you're giving a gift to these kids by coaching them, and it's completely the opposite. These kids are giving you a gift to allow you to coach them and to learn about who you are as a leader, about who you are as a communicator, about how you handle conflict, about all of those things.
Watching some of these guys on the sideline screaming and yelling and the play names that
Yes.
they use
my
is
goodness.
hilarious.
And the coaches that wear suits.
They wear
my
suits.
goodness.
It's very
It's
important.
a big deal. How did it first start? Basketball.
So it started in 2000.
Okay.
And there were a couple guys. Kevin Tribbett was one of them that just helped start it. They just decided.
Tribbett.
Kevin Tribbett. That is
his son the
SRO.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
That, and he's a former student impact kid.
Really?
I actually, he's
got
one of
all
my
the
old kids.
generations.
That's crazy.
You got the
Yeah,
whole
so
line.
Kevin Tribbett was one of the original people that helped founders of Student Impact. I don't know what that word is. But yeah, and so he has always been really involved and still is a huge supporter, even to this day. When we had the very first Coach of the Year trophy, we invited him to that presentation, and he was in awe. He could have never fathomed 415 players in our league 2 years ago.
Was that the first Coach of the Year?
Yeah,
Who
2 years
was
ago.
that?
It was
it Gus?
It was Gus.
Gus.
And then, yes, last year was Bahar.
Bahar, yeah.
Bahar, during the draft, as you recall, was cuddling the trophy.
He was holding
Oh, yeah.
it like a baby.
Very proud of it.
I
Cuddling.
looked over and he was he had it like a baby. And I was
He
like,
also said that he was going after it this year, two-time.
Yeah. We are going to have him on here so everyone can look
Oh,
forward
yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
He's going to have a lot to
that's
say.
going to be very good.
oh my goodness.
So what was the goal with basketball? Because obviously it was something separate from Student Impact. What was the goal of doing that?
So when Dan started Student Impact, one of the things that he had a passion for were sports camps and bringing people through sports to Jesus. Mm-hmm. That was one of his missions. And so to use camps, to use sports, to use all of those types of things. And so he wanted to use, and this was such a great vision, if you really think about it, he wanted to use basketball as a means in which to connect people back to Student Impact, which is, you just said it, people, when they know Student Impact, it's always Student Impact basketball. Always basketball, because it's such an excellent program. Mm-hmm. And so basketball has always been that intermediary that we could always come back to. Back in the day when we had 75 kids, I would have all the former athletes come back and we did a devotion before every single game
Really?
by a former student. And so
Yeah.
they would come and do that. It's really difficult with
With
415.
the amount of kids that we have.
Yeah, and on all the courts, and it's so loud, and it's a very different place. One of the things that we can do now, though, that makes it so much easier, is we can text them a devotion
True.
for the week so they can work
Look
on
over
that.
this one.
And so we still want to give them some Jesus. But still, again, the goal is to get that community involved in basketball where maybe people wouldn't want to come and hang out with kids after school. But most people will watch basketball, run a scoring table, coach a team, provide skills or whatever.
And I feel like basketball is like a really great opportunity for these kids to like experience that type of just like genuine like love and passion. And I feel like it's great to see, especially teenagers our age, to want to like be there
Yes.
and want to be a part of these kids' lives and like show them this type of love that some of these kids don't experience on the daily. And so like for people to get into basketball, I feel like that's why it's so big and it's growing so fast because people are noticing that type of like that passion for it.
If we had the space, we could double our league.
Oh, for sure.
We have the demand for it. We don't have the space
Yeah.
for it. But basketball at Student Impact has never been about basketball. It's always been about representing Jesus to other people. And really that's what it is at the Rock too, right?
Yeah.
We want to be the face that people can see that say those people love me no matter what. And so basketball is about basketball, but really it's more about us being able to present to other people, listen, I don't need to agree or disagree with you. I just love you because you know what? I don't deserve to be loved either, but Jesus loved me first.
Yeah.
And since he loved me first, let me put myself in that position. I'm going to love you as well.
And that's kind of how like faith like plays a role into basketball. But
Right.
how does that faith part happen in Student Impact itself?
Like daily with
on the
students.
daily with those kids, like how do you play that role of faith without like feel like you're giving a devotion to all these
It's
kids?
it's been more difficult of late. There was a strong period of time where we would just have Bible studies like during after school, and people were very open to that. Obviously that's not what we do now. The goal is to always provide love and acceptance at a safe and consistent environment. So again, we don't have to believe the same as anyone else. What we do have to do is love like Jesus did. I always say that if Jesus would come back, he'd come here.
Yeah.
I feel like he would come here and he'd be like, these are my people.
Yeah.
He'd be hanging out with these kids, you know. He'd be trying to figure out a way to connect with them in a real way. And I think one of the things that we do here that we show the love of Jesus best in is being present and available. And it's all about relationship. If you don't build a relationship with someone, then you don't earn the right to speak into their lives. But we, you know, all of the staff, all of the student leaders are trained and taught and believe in their hearts, by the way. It's not just a training, but believe in their hearts that we are here to be connected. We are here to, you know, build a relationship with kids. So when something does happen, because it will, good or bad,
Definitely.
we can be there to celebrate or grieve or help assist along. And the true love and acceptance that comes along with that is the only way that we know how to do that. In and amongst ourselves, I can only speak for myself, but I don't have what it takes to give you what you need. Jesus does. And so if we can reflect him and always turn back and point to him, we'll be successful.
And I can say, like, from a student who's been here, like, that's definitely what you guys do. That's why I kept coming all those times. And I remember, like, obviously you go to church and you're in the kids group and, like, it's always a little boring. Like, it's never fun. But you come here and you make those genuine relationships with adults, like role models, as a young kid. And then I know for me, I felt that as a 5th and 6th grader, and I wanted to do it myself for other people. And so I think that through the years, you see these kids that just keep coming back and keep coming, and it's all because the people above them are showing them the love of Jesus.
Yes.
And making them feel loved, and they want to be able to do that themselves.
One of the greatest gifts and the greatest, like, check marks that you can get here is when a kid says, when I grow up, I want to work here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that, you think, oh,
Yeah, like, oh.
that kid got it. Like we
They-
did. That's it. That's a hooray.
And
And
you know?
there's so
like,
many kids that do
Me
that.
Yeah.
personally, I walked in here almost 2 years ago, like last year, and like I didn't come in here thinking, oh, like I'm gonna work here. I came in here like, what is this? And my brother came in first, and so he came home and he was like, oh my goodness, it's so cool. Like this, they did this and this and this, and I was like, oh, okay, like. Okay, I'm coming next time.
It sounds so normal though. You're like, we ate food, and then we played ping pong, and then we went and sat in hammocks, and then it's just all these little things that are just so normal.
Yeah.
But when you do them with people who care and have an affection for doing life alongside you, it changes your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of us in this world that we live in are not loved and accepted for who we are. We are always told that we're loved and accepted if.
Yeah.
And we always have that extra if. But at Student Impact, I said this last week in our staff meeting, right? You have to be able to hold our beliefs as Christians in one hand, and in the other hand, you have to be able to say, this kid needs this and believes this, and we love that. And my Christian faith will always guide and direct me to love and acceptance.
And I feel like we always talk about the kid side of it, of like this is for the kids, and like I just want to say, like me as like an employee here, I get the same. Like these kids do so much for me, and I don't even think they understand.
They don't.
And like if I have a bad day, I come in here and I'm like, okay, like here it comes. Like here comes all the kids. Like you're like what's coming, and then they come in with like these smiles and this joy and this like happiness that like is like so refreshing that it's like they restart my mood and my attitude of the day.
They're so happy
They're
to
so
be here.
happy, and it's amazing.
I've always said that the one culture thing that I wanted to create here at Student Impact was a big yellow smiley face, which is why I love that merch. That's where the merch came from.
That's it.
But when you walk in here, you should feel a big yellow smiley face, and if you don't, we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Something's
not
connecting
right,
there.
and we need to change that because that's on us
And
as
it's
staff.
like it's so important because our schools are so big, and
Yes.
these kids go to school and they're not even noticed, and then they come here and someone knows their first name, someone knows what they did over the weekend and has a question about that, and someone just wants to be around them. And so I think that is what's so impactful to these kids, and that's why they love coming here every single day. And that's why
people
we
know
love
their name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a powerful statement that somebody knows your name.
Yeah.
And they're just not used to that.
It's like such a little thing that makes the biggest impact. And it's like, the thing is like with the kids is like, we remember their name and it's like that big giant impact. When I first started working here and the kids knew my name, I was like, oh,
you remember me?
I'm actually somebody here now. Like I did something. Like the first time that like a kid said my name, I was like, oh, but like it's a big deal. And like people don't realize that. But like once you experience it, you're like, wow.
It's so simple. It's so simple that you just want to be known and loved. That it's a core of who we are as humans. We all want to be known. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. And if we can do that in the littlest things, we'll be victorious in the big things.
Yeah.
And I can say, like, now I definitely think you are the reason that, like, that is such a big goal in my life. Like, I always want to make people know that I know their first name, and I always want to make them feel noticed and cared about. And that all comes from you, because you're the first person that was ever, like, a stranger in my life. And I met you and instantly felt like you'd known me my entire life, and instantly felt like, oh, like, she wants to know me. And so, like, every time I see a kid, I'm like, do what Danielle did and make you feel noticed, make them feel loved, and all those things.
And that's the biggest part why we wanted you on here. And we thank you so much for coming on and being our first like little guinea pig.
So excited.
I know. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the things that you've done, especially at Student Impact itself. And thank you for coming on and sharing it with us. So we're now, to end every podcast, we're doing our toast.
Toast, like you take a sip and then you got to toast at the end.
You gotta
It's kind of
do a toast.
We tried to be witty with it.
Okay.
We try to be cute.
I like it.
So let's just make a toast to big things ahead because so much has happened.
Yep.
And I think this year and going forward, so many things are going to continue to happen. So let's
Just
just-
yellow smiley faces
exactly.
everywhere.
Yes. Let's make a toast to that. Is that how you do a toast?
Yep. You
Yep.
go clink,
You
Clink.
put a water bottle.
clink.
With your boo water bottle. Well,
I'll toast to that.
okay. Perfect. That's a wrap, guys.
Is that how we do this?